Hey folks, welcome back to the Edupedia world, and I am Abhinay Gupta. And today again, we will continue with the Professional Ethics by the CA Act 1949. Right? I'm still not at the best of my health with my voice and everything concerned. So please bear with me if the voice sounds a little mechanical, it is choked. But I have recorded the initial two videos also in the same manner, and I hope it is audible and understood. Right? Some of you who are regular may not relate to the voice, but yeah, that's me. Okay. So, okay, let's move ahead with the lecture now. So if you remember, then we had started with the clause number 11. We discussed the basics. We discussed the regulations. We discussed the general resolution as well. Now today we move ahead to discuss the specific resolution. Right? Due to shortage of some time, we could not take it up in the previous lecture. But now let's move ahead with that. So first let's have a brief of what we saw in the general resolution, because some of these will also be reflected in the specific resolution, where I will also pinpoint the difference between the two. Right? What is the part in special resolution and what is the part of it in the general resolution. So over here we saw that you can get into employment with a chartered accountant or any chartered accountancy firm. Right? You can get into your private tutorship or any part-time tutorship with any organization organized by the institute, right? And only part-time over there. And remember, we are talking about everything that we are discussing over here is about the chartered accountant in practice. Then we have any authorship or editorship. You have no restrictions with that in the institute journal or any other place for your authorship. You can hold the life insurance agency license only for obtaining the commissions. You can attend classes for any other courses and also appear for their examination. There is no restriction on that as such. You can also go ahead to be an MP, MLA, MLC, etc. And as we discussed, right, leadership in non-commercial organization. So if you want to get ahead with any charitable organization, any school or something like that, and be a leader to take it ahead, an honorary leadership, right, then you are always allowed to do that, because these are charitable things. It's not a business for you. Again, notary public and any other such positions can be taken up by you, like justice of the peace. Then you have special executive magistrate, right? All such and any alike positions can be accessed by you. Right? Now you can also be valuer for the examination papers, paper setter, right? You can be invigilator, you can be that flying that you call, right? All these things are also allowed for you to do, because it is basically you who can do that, no one else, right? So you can be a surveyor. Again, for surveyor, remember, this is only for the insurance purpose. Surveyor or loss assessor, right? And at last, if we talk about agriculture, you can own agriculture land and do your agriculture into it. You're always allowed to do that. But if you're taking up agriculture as a business, a separate thing, right, where you have employed laborers and everything and you're working on that scale, then for that you would require specific permission. So we'll see that in the next specific resolution section. Right? Now when we come down to the specific regulation, right, this is basically the start of the class today. Now, specific resolution are those things that the institute has allowed, that okay, you can go ahead with them, but please acquire a permission from us. Why? Because the institute wants to check whether or not there is any conflict of interest, whether or not your independence is being sacrificed at any point of time, whether or not your dignity is impacted, your integrity is impacted, right? So all these things, right, in general, that may not be connected to your profession, that may not bring any disrepute or any flaw in the independence, right? But there can also be situations as such. So the institute needs to be aware as to who are your clients, how do you deal with them, what are your working areas, and what is this business that you are into. If they correlate or coincide, or you think that okay, something will overlap the other, they may not allow. Otherwise, if it is a separate thing and there is no impact on any one of them, then they may allow. So it is their criteria to decide when and when not to allow in every specific case, right? So it is case specific. You just come up, bring about your case, and then the institute will look into the matter and decide whether or not to allow you to go ahead with this. Clear? So that is the intention between having some specific resolutions. that in general it is allowed, but it has to be case specific, so we will check. That is the only condition for that. The first thing is employment in any business concern or any non-business concern. So now understand, if you are into a practice of your own, right? You have a firm of chartered accountant practice now. You may be a sole proprietor, right? In any case, if you are into practice, why do you at all need to get into an employment with any other business concern? That means your practice is part-time, right? Which will make your practice suffer. Or even if your business is part-time, like when we talk about employment in any business concern or employment in any non-business concern, whatever it is, any part-time or full-time employment, you are not allowed to do that on the first case. But yeah, if you have some reasons to specify, if you have some reasons to prove, then you may. When I say you may, that means yes, you go ahead, take the permission. If the institute allows as per your case, right, then you may go ahead with it. Otherwise, it is a difficult task for you to enhance or move ahead with anything such, right? But now one thing again you need to mark for sure, that if you or any of your relative has any substantial interest in that business, then it is closed for you. You will not get the permission that has been specified by the institute, right? So they say that if you are into any full-time or any part-time employment in any business concern, right, provided that the member or his relative do not hold substantial interest in such concern, and it is not just or, member and relative combined as well, you should not hold more than 20% of the shares in such concern. When I say 20%, because I'm talking about substantial interest, right? So we need to first understand what substantial interest actually stands for. So basically, when we talk about your substantial interest, right, it says that during the year, at any time during the year, you should not be holding more than 20% of the shares which carries the voting power, right? If you are holding any share that has fixed dividend and will not give you any rights in future and stuff, that is allowed. But I'm talking about 20% shares of the company which will contain also the voting power. And it is not just you alone, you plus any of your relatives or two or more of your relatives combined, not you. In any case, you should not be holding shares worth 20% or higher of the voting power in any business concern. Right? Now, when I talk about you and as well as your relatives and stuff, right? So who are the people who will be considered in this case? That if they have, will consider it to be yours. So there are basically either you or one of your relatives that we have discussed, right? Or one or more partner and along with the relative. So your firm, partner and relatives. So it is not just about you and your relatives, right? It will also include your partner in the firm. If it's a proprietorship, it's a separate issue. But if it's a partnership firm, even your partner cannot hold it. If they do, then you cannot hold employment over there, right? And then they also go on to say that you cannot indirectly also hold it. Now, what do you mean by indirectly hold it? So for example, if me, my partner, my relatives, all of us combined or in any proportion, forget about those, in any proportion, if I am holding the substantial interest in company A and company A holds substantial interest in company B, then I am indirectly holding the substantial interest in company B. So you have to be careful on that front as well, right? So if you are having substantial interest, you can never take it up. That is strictly disallowed, right? Now, when we talk about relatives, we again need to understand who relatives are, right? So in connection with that member, a relative would be the spouse, husband or the wife, your siblings, your brother or your sister, or any lineal ascendant or descendant of that member. Lineal ascendant descendant means your father, your mother, your father's father, mother's father, father's mother, mother's mother, father's brother, father's mother, father's sister, mother's brother, mother's sister, anyone like that. Your entire lineal ascendant, lineal descendant, your son, daughter, or anyone like that. And on the side, your spouse and your brother and sister. So all these will be considered to be your relatives, right? Whew. So the first point that you have in your specific resolution is that you cannot take up any employment in any business concern or any non-business concern if the conditions that we have discussed are in place. But again, if you notice, right? You go on to the institute material and you see, I don't know how to interpret it very specific, but they have mentioned, they say all these conditions about substantial interest and everything only in case of business concern. For non-business concern, they have just one liner that full-time and part-time employment in non-business concern. If you are entering, then please take permission. That is it. That means substantial interest in non-business concern is not a matter of concern for us, right? So please be careful in the examination. What are we talking about? Are we talking about any business concern or are we talking about any non-business concern? Because if it is a business concern, then substantial interest is an issue. But if it is a non-business concern, then substantial interest is not an issue at all. Then you cannot also hold the office of a whole-time director or a managing director in any body corporate. Now, yeah, body corporate will again contain the same meaning as given in the Companies Act 1956 or 2013. But the point of crux is you cannot be a whole-time director or a managing director. Why? Because again, think you are into practice. Don't deviate from that point. That is the basis of all our discussion. You are a chartered accountant in practice. How can you go and be a whole-time and a managing director in any company? Because if you are a whole-time director, you have to go there daily. If you're a managing director, you're managing everything. Then how are you managing your firm? What about your practice? Who's doing it? Right? There is a conflict of interest. That is not allowed. If you are into practice, take it up seriously. You cannot be into full-time employment. Being a whole-time director or a managing director will actually reflect to be into full-time employment. And that, my dear friend, is not allowed. Okay? Not allowed means generally it is not allowed. Yeah, if you have any specific case coming up that, yeah, I can manage it or there is something like that, something unique has happened, yeah, go ahead, take permission. If you get it, well and good. You can be. If you don't get it, again, well and good. Get back to your practice, right? Now, next we move on to another critical aspect, which is a family business. Right? There are places where they don't have job openings. Like for example, I belong to a small town called Siliguri, right? It's in the North Bengal region. Over there, we don't have jobs. Like when I was brought up there, I have never seen jobs. It's just some clerical task for which jobs were open with every individual in their firm, right? Otherwise, if you think like in Delhi, in Mumbai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, all these places, Kolkata, you have job opportunities. People go out for job. People leave their cities, they come here for job. But otherwise, you have businesses around, right? So if you have a family business, right, you do it, you don't do it. Even if you get it out of inheritance or by will, or in any case, it's a succession, it's a partition. Anyways, if you get any family business concern, if you get involved in a family business concern, or in any concern, any business that you get involved because of any relationship that you have, right? So if you want to be a part of that business, or if you are deriving profit from that business, may it be out of inheritance or anything, whatever be the reason, you will have to take an approval from the council that, listen, I'm into practice, I'm doing my practice very well. That is a business from where I gain some profit because of inheritance or because of the will and partition and stuff, but I am not actively involved in the business. So please let me continue with that business and my practice as well. But if you are involved in the day-to-day management of the business, you are not even allowed to go and take the permission. You will not get the permission specifically. That means in specific resolution, any business concern where you are actively involved will not be considered. Only business concern that has devolved upon you by succession, inheritance, partition, or anything like that due to any relationship, you can continue because that is not your business. Somebody else was doing it. You are just getting the benefit because of the relationship you have, right? So it's my dad's business, for example. The day my dad feels like quitting and as a successor, I get it. And it's on auto mode, for example, right now. Then the money is flowing in, the business is growing, the business is continuing. What will happen if I open up a firm in Siliguri? I will have to take permission from the institute. Listen, this is the scene that is happening. Should I continue with my... Please allow me to continue with my practice. And don't consider me to be guilty of professional misconduct under clause 11. Why? Because I don't manage that business. I manage my practice. It is just something coming upon me out of inheritance and succession. Right? But if I get involved in my dad's business, I will not even be allowed to take that permission. and I will be deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct if I do that business side by side with my practice, right? So even family business have some criticalities that you need to check in. Yeah, now we come down to the agricultural activity. Remember, we had the same tab in your general resolution. Now, in the general resolution, what you had is that you own the land, you are into agriculture, go ahead, do it. Otherwise, who's going to manage the agriculture, right? You are into practice, do it. Agriculture doesn't mean day to day you have to just be with it. Once you have sowed the seed, keep watering it, it will come up. One fine day you come up, 3 days at a stretch, you harvest it, your crops, right? And if you're working individually, obviously you don't have very large land to work on. But if you are involved in any agricultural activity, maybe you are not a farmer, you are not an agriculturist, but you are involved in agricultural activities where you have hired laborers and everything, you have taken the agricultural land, the laborers, they work, and then that is a business, right? In short, if you want to just remember, then remember that if you are also a farmer being a chartered accountant, you are allowed to do your farming. But if you're not a farmer and you have taken up agriculture as a business, it will be considered as a business and you will have to take a special permission for the same, right? To show that you do not have any conflict of interest, to show that yes, you're not biased towards anything, you are not impacting your profession for that and all these things. If everything goes well, you will be given the permission. So if you are a farmer, you're allowed. But if you're into an agricultural business, please take permission, right? You understood the difference between the two? So just don't go by the term agriculture. Hey, agriculture, yes, it is allowed. I remember allowed. No. Understand, is he a farmer or is he into a business of agriculture? And that will actually be the point of discussion for you, right? Moving ahead, next we have educational institutions. So I being a practicing chartered accountant, plus if I have an interest in Edupedia World, I will have to take permission for that. Why? Because Edupedia World is an educational institution, although it's virtual, right? But since I'm not into practice and all such stuff, then my having interest in Edupedia World does not even arise, right? So if you are a chartered accountant in practice and you have opened up an educational institution, or somebody else has opened up and you are tying up with them and you have your interest in that educational institution, then you will have to take specific permission, right? Next you have lecturership, tutorship of other courses. So basically the institute wants to say that if you are into lecturership and tutorship of my subjects, you are allowed to do it. But if you are into full-time or part-time, remember, if you are into part-time or full-time lecturership for courses that do not form part of the courses of the institute, CA Institute, right? That means if you are a full-time or part-time lecturer for some other courses, then please come and take approval for that. You are a chartered accountant and you are teaching financial management to some other course, right? Please take approval for that. That is something different apart from your field, because if you are a chartered accountant and you are teaching CA subjects, that means you may be sharing your experience. But if you are not teaching CA and you are teaching some other courses, that means you are trying to make business out of it, right? So you are doing it for the earning purpose. So again, then there can be a compromise on your practice. Hence, please take approval. Getting the point? Are you trying to understand how the things are being rotated? You will have to keep a grip on this, because this will decide what answer you write in the examination. Because after coming out, generally no person I've heard says, I got my PE wrong. Everybody says I got my PE right, and then most of them fail. Because if you get your PE right, if you have written it well with the context of the text, then you get good marks. Out of 16, even if you score 13, 14, 15, 16, anything like that, just 25 more marks to qualify. Is it a big task? So everybody who says I got my PE correct and I got my PE very well, they should all pass. But they don't. Why? Because these are small things that they fail to see in the question. But once you do, yes, you actually get your PE right. Okay? Because once you get your papers right after your examination, if you ask them to give you your papers, you see people make mistake in PE. They consider it to be very easy. Why? Because they read the clause, mug up the clause and go that yes, if I write the clause, everything is sorted. But no, you'll have to give an answer what is happening inside. Only then everything is sorted. Got it? Next you have other editorship. That means editorship where you're not actually writing for the journals of the institute, right? So you are actually writing articles and other stuff for the journals of somebody else, some other institute, some other places. Then please take permission, because that is something out of your interest. You being chartered accountant, if you want to write something, write in your journal. But if you're going out of the league to some other topic, to some other institute or to some other journals, there has to be a reason for that. Explain it, take permission, go ahead for writing it. Right? The institute wants to understand what makes you go there, what makes you do that. Right? And at last they have left it open to say any other business or occupation for which the executive committee considers that permission may be granted. Right? If they think it should be granted, then they'll tell you, okay, yeah, bring it to me, we'll check. So this is actually the etc. part. It does not exhaust the list. It is an etc. part. That these things have been specified. If there are something else, please bring it to us. We'll check it case to case. Whether we are supposed to give you permission or we are supposed to deny. Bring all of the case to us. That is what they mean to basically say over here. Right? So what all things did you understand for specific resolution? Employment and business concern. That means taking up jobs, in short. Taking up directorship as whole-time director and managing director. Getting involved in the family business is a problem, but inheriting or being a successor and earning the profit is not a problem if you prove it, right? Agriculture as a farmer is okay, but agriculture as a businessman is not okay. Take permission. Educational institution, if you are running, it's a business for you. Take permission, right? And so on, you go ahead with lecturership, tutorship, editorship, and the etc. department, the other business, right? So that is all about the specific resolution that we wanted to talk. Now there's just a little more remaining in this clause, which is about a case study that we'll be discussing, right? That is something that we generally do. So we will be discussing 1 or 2 case studies in this clause as well. And then some of the decisions that has been taken by the council or the high court. And that will be taken up in the next lecture. With that, we will be completing clause 11, and then clause 12 is a very small clause, and we'll be done with the part 1. Right? So I'll take your leave for the moment, and we'll be back with the last part of this clause in the next lecture. Until then, it is Abhinay Gupta signing off. Thank you and bye-bye.